everybody, it's Julie. Welcome to Hello Monday. Normally I make a card on Mondays from start to finish, but today I'm participating in a very special hop and I decided to do an activity advent calendar and I'm so excited over how it turned out. It's a full 8.5 by 11 size advent calendar and I did it with my Big Shot Plus and my mini window dies and the advent stamps and matching dies set. So I'm going to start by printing off a template, and I've actually included a download for this template over at the Classroom blog, so be sure to click on the link in the description below the video so you can download one for yourself if you want to try this. And I printed it out onto copy paper. And the first thing I need to do is take the 8.5 by 11 cardstock and mount that to the cutting pad of the Big Shot Plus. Now this is a machine that has a 9-inch wide feed, so that's how come I was able to do this. And I'm going to use some Post-it tape by neutralizing it first against my hand there a couple of times. And I just need to anchor this down onto the cutting pad. And then I'm going to take the photocopy template that I made and lay that over the top. And you do want to have this printed onto photocopy paper because you want a really thin layer that goes over the top. And I'm going to use some extra pieces of Post-it tape, neutralize those again against my hand so that I don't have any trouble pulling those up. And the reason why I didn't want them to overlap onto the craft cardstock is that sometimes when you have multiple layers of tape and you send it through the Big Shot, you're going to get impressions into your cardstock surface from that excess tape. So I wanted to make sure they didn't overlap and not cause me problems later on. Now that I have that in place, I'm going to take the mini windows dies and position those with the score line on the left and the cutting side towards the right so that all my little windows are going to open from right to left. So you do need to pay attention to where you're putting those score lines if you want them all opening in the same direction. And I'm just lining those up onto my template. I had determined what size those windows were going to be, and there's 3 dies the same size and shape in the mini window set, which is going to make this go really fast as compared to trying to cut them all at one, individually one at a time. So now I'm going to take the other cutting pad and place that over the top. And I found this whole project worked the best if I used the regular pads that come with the Big Shot Plus and not try to substitute the smaller cutting pads from the smaller machine. So I've got my big pads for the Plus loaded there and the platform, etc., etc. And once I sent it through the machine, I was able to then come back and lift those dies up and reposition them over the next row, and they're all going to get lined up in the exact same spot because I have that template there. So I'll put the cutting pad back over the top, make sure those are anchored in place with the tape so they don't shift on me, and then go ahead and send it through the machine. Now once I'm done doing all the horizontal rows on my calendar is going to go vertical on me and be 8.5 wide by 11 inches tall. I went ahead and did the last vertical row, and it's really great, like I said, to have those 3 dies the same shape and size so you can run them through at the same time. So now I'm done, and it's time to remove my cover from the cutting pads here, and I just very carefully removed the Post-it tape so I didn't mar the surface of my paper. And I'm going to set that aside for a minute while I work on this bit. And I went ahead and printed the template again onto heavyweight white cardstock because I have a rear feed on my printer. But if you don't have a rear feed, you can just take the photocopy template and temporarily affix that over the top of a clean sheet of 8.5 by 11 cardstock so that you know exactly where to write all your different holiday activities so that they'll show up properly through the craft layer that we're creating here. So I just wanted to mention that. And then I'm going to go ahead and decorate now my cover. And I'm using Hero Arts pigment ink. This is a unicorn white, and I love the way it shows up onto craft and darker cardstocks. It's a nice opaque ink, and I'm using the pine branch there from the mistletoe and holly stamp set to create this border all around the edges. And I just overlamped and repeat stamped that pine branch to create kind of a lacy, snow-covered effect of pine branches. And then I'm going to take the berry image in this set and just ink up the berries as much as possible with the corner of my archival vermilion pad. And it's okay if I get a little bit of the stems because it's going to retreat and just kind of disappear into those pine branches there and get camouflaged. But for the most part, I was trying to get just the berries inked up. And then I'm going to set that aside to dry while I work on the rest. Now I've taken the Advent stamp numbers and lined them up on a long acrylic block. And I'm going to ink those up with some archival jet black. I wanted to have a fast drying black ink, very dark. and saturated onto these strips of smooth Bristol that I just had in my scrap bin. They were already there, so I figured why not use what I have instead of cutting into a fresh sheet of cardstock. And I'm also stamping onto a layer of foam padding here just to make sure that I'm getting nice, clean impressions down the whole surface with that long acrylic block. So I'll get all my numbers stamped up in a row. And I find just for me and my workflow, this works really great for me when I have to stamp and die cut a bunch of images here. So now I'm going to take the Post-it tape and make sure all the matching dies are lined up over the numbers, die cut those, and then I'm going to toss all those die cut numbers into a bowl so that they're ready to go. It did occur to me when I got to this point that, once this is mounted to the wall, it could be kind of challenging to get your fingernail underneath the corner and pop those windows open. You could pre-pop them if you wanted to, but I really love the effect that you get when you pop each of those apart because there's little tiny webbing in the die design that enables those doors to remain shut until you actually pull that door open. So for this project, I decided I was going to create some little finger notches. Now, you don't have to do this, but I just thought it would be helpful, especially, if someone like me who doesn't have any fingernails. So I just used the metal edge of my Tim Holtz ruler and a craft knife to go through and create these little diagonal notches at the upper right corner of each window. And then they were ready to go. So now I'm going to take some of this Be Creative tape. I'm going to use the 1/2 inch width, and I'm going to put a strip at each long edge of the cover. I'm working on the back side now. I've just flipped everything over. I'm working on the back side. And I'll get the left-hand side, the right-hand side, and then I'm going to add some more at the top and the bottom. And I find on a project like this, you really want a nice, strong bonding adhesive to hold everything together because it's going to get tugged on repeatedly as every day as you go to open each of the windows or doors, you're going to be pulling on that, and you want to make sure that the adhesive will hold up to that tension. So I'm going to add more strips of this tape because the row in between, the vertical row in between each of these windows is more than 1/2 inch. This tape is going to fit nicely. And I don't think you need to go both directions. I think just one row of tape down between each of the windows is going to be sufficient. So you don't have to add any more than that. And then to line these up, I'm going to make sure they get mounted straightly together by removing the liner paper just partially. And I'm starting left to right. I mean, right now it looks like I'm working on the right-hand side because I'm on the back, but when you flip it over, it'll be the left-hand side. And I want to line up those outer edges together to make sure I get a good start on everything being positioned as it should be. So I'm going to use that long edge and the top and the bottom corners of the back sheet to make sure the top sheet is lined up properly. So here you can see I'm just making sure everything is lined up nice and flush so it's perfectly aligned. And I pressed at the top corner and the right corner where the adhesive is exposed because I had pulled those liner papers away there. So I'm just going to anchor those, and then I can come in and grab the liner paper and start pulling that away and press along that edge and make sure everything is anchored down permanently. And this is the trick to getting it all lined up. If I were off, I'd have a little bit of wiggle room because I didn't remove the liner paper completely from that strip of adhesive. So now I'm going to go back one at a time to each of these vertical rows of tape and remove the liner paper. Now I could have done them all at one time, but sometimes I end up with an air pocket or something and it buckles. The front and back layer will buckle. So I found it easier to just do one row at a time and just keep smoothing the paper out as I went along those adhesive lines. So here I'm just smoothing it out. And then when I got to the other side, I decided, I don't know if this is right or wrong. It just worked for me, but I felt more comfortable removing the liner paper from the top and bottom edges before I did that final outer row. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull that one out and then go ahead and get the bottom one at least started, if not completely removed. So I'm just getting in there with my tweezers, and this is the great thing about those angled tweezers. They can get in there when your fingers can't because it's just too tight of a fit to get in there with your fingertips. So I'm just getting in there, getting a hold of that piece of liner paper with my tweezers, and then I can go ahead and continue pulling those liner papers out and anchoring everything down, and I'm going to have a nice smooth finish, everything permanently mounted, and once it's down with that tape, it's down. So and there you can see how my little finger notches there are going to work in the end. Now I I didn't think about that when I was writing my activities, so a little bit of my handwriting is peeking through, but I don't think anybody will mind. And plus, it's kind of a teaser, right? You see that little hint. There's something there. There's something behind that door. So now I'm going to take all my die cut numbers and mount those in place with some liquid adhesive. You could use tape runner, you could use glue dots, whatever works for you. I just reached for my liquid adhesive and decided that was going to work just fine. Positioning those in the center of each window, and then the calendar is finished once I have all my numbers mounted. And here you can see what it looks like when the doors are popped open. I thought it turned out awesome. I just love it. There are more still shots and details available at the Classroom blog, and the supplies are available at ellenhutson.com. Thanks for watching.